AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
And off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. I'm Matt.
You're a loser, Matt.
Shut up, kid. Paul O'Neill.
They're chanting Paul O'Neill's name.
You so.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
And Mr. Toby Tom Play. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good one. Shea Dixon in about 15 minutes. Another big win for the 2019 Tigers. Joe Brady is an NFL head coach. LSU tight end transfer Zach Grace in hour 3. Ton to do. Let's begin as we do every single day.
It's time to pop the top on another edition of AFR with Bud Light. Drink easy.
Senior Bowl is going on in Mobile. And obviously there is the NFL component of it, as all of these NFL teams are looking for potential draft prospects and guys that could very well be key impact players for them in the future. There's also the component, as you look at it through a college lens, of looking at guys that you cheered for during their college careers and them looking ahead to their futures. In the case of Garrett Nussmeier, however, there's a little bit of a look back, actually, because this was just such a it was a bizarre season for Garrett Nussmeier. You know, he returned to college football for his 5th season, the leading returning passer in college football, having thrown for 4,000 yards a season ago, and comes into this year with so much expectation. He was a projected first-round draft pick. He, Cade Klubnik, Arch Manning were all among the betting favorites to win the Heisman Trophy. And in fall camp, we learned that Garrett Nussmeier was on a little bit of a pitch count, as Brian Kelly would say. And then he continued to ramp up and improve. And then late in the season, we learned of a re-injure. And the Texas A&M game where he was pulled was the last time we saw Garrett Nussmeier play in an LSU uniform. So one of the most fascinating things for me is trying to make sense out of what happened, how it affected Nussmeier, and how it might impact his future, being able to explain that. Because there's 2 components to this. Now, the first part of that, the what happened, is a look back. And quite honestly, I'm not so sure how many LSU fans are going to be deeply interested in the immediacy of looking back to find out and learn what happened with Garrett. Because that was cloaked and shrouded in a season of negativity. And in this very moment, that feels like another lifetime, doesn't it? I mean, just look at what the last 2 months have been like since introducing Lane Kiffin on December the 1st. Signing that high school class, getting Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson on board, flipping Corey Barber from Ole Miss, who's now a 5-star, going through with all hiring the staff, all that went into that. Watching Ole Miss on their run, the coaches going back and forth, and the portal cycle. I mean, it feels like we've lived 2 years in 2 months, and the season, the 25 season, feels like forever ago. And there's such a positive trajectory for the program that I get the sense most people probably wouldn't be super pumped to look back and think about what went wrong in 2025, because in a small dose of irony, the worst thing that happened, which was LSU having a really bad season, could end up being the catalyst for a net positive, right? Which moved on to hiring Lane Kiffin and now building this portal class and all the things which, could be sort of this renaissance of the program under Lane Kiffin. Remains to be seen. But Garrett Nussmeier is a guy that I think throughout this pre-draft process probably has the most to gain. Certainly among the LSU guys going into the draft, but you could argue in the entire draft, he's got the most to gain. Because this was a guy that was a projected first-round draft pick who saw this season go terribly wrong, where he threw for just 1,900 yards, averaged just over 200 yards passing per game, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, didn't play the month of November or in the bowl game. So Nussmeier goes into this pre-draft process, Senior Bowl, Combine, Pro Day, top 30 visits, all of it, with a ton to prove that he's more reminiscent of the 2024 Garrett Nussmeier and not so much the 2025 Garrett Nussmeier. Well, obviously, the thing that throughout this draft process, Garrett is going to have to answer over and over and over again. We may not get the actual answer until the Combine, when he goes through the physical for probably 32 teams that, tug on every arm and twist everything to do their own evaluations of him. But this is the first time we've heard Garrett speak about it. And on Monday, he was at the podium at the Senior Bowl. Now, full disclosure, this is all audio from cell phones, people in the crowd videoing. So there wasn't like a box audio. So the audio isn't great. But this was Garrett's about 20 seconds talking about kind of the process of getting back to healthy.
Yeah, obviously it's been a long process for me dealing with the injury, and so it was kind of down to the wire-ish. Obviously, I had that re-injure towards the end of the season, and so been working really hard to try and get back healthy. And so as soon as we realized that, hey, okay, I can go do this, it was a no-brainer.
He was talking about no-brainer to play in the Senior Bowl, right? Or to participate this week when he was healthy. So this morning, Tuesday morning, our guys Hester and Flynn, they're there in Mobile for the week, hosting off the bench. Make sure you catch the guys weekday mornings over there. The great thing is the access that they get, right? They get opportunities to talk to these players. So Nuss sat down with Hester and Flynn earlier today, and they asked how he's feeling.
I feel good. I mean, it's been a long process.
Yeah,
trying to get healthy, and we're really able to get some answers. Not actually, probably about a month ago was the first time we kind of really figured out what it was. Finally got a good plan to try and get healthy, and so it was a game time decision to see if I could be able to come out here. And once I was able to, hey, I can go. It's full go, and so it's a great opportunity for me.
What's interesting is he said it was about a month ago that they actually figured out what the injury was. So, what was the injury?
Talking to the injury, I couldn't use my core. I've been having to just kind of go back from the ground up and train myself and, get back to finishing throws and rotating through the ball, actually using my core now. Mm-hmm. It's been nice. The ball is definitely coming out a lot different.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah, it's been good.
He said he couldn't use his core, but he didn't say what the injury was. So I think there's still some lingering questions out there as to what, and by the way, so a month ago would have been the end of December, right? A month ago would have been when they played, look, today's January 27th. They played the bowl game December 27th. So a month ago was right around the bowl game. He had already at that point not been playing for nearly 2 months. Remember, the A&M game was at the end of October. He didn't play all of November, and then a month ago was the end of December. So basically 2 months. He hadn't been playing for 2 months, and he says that's about when we realized what the issue was. Still didn't say what that is. I'm going to be fascinated if and whenever we do find that out, because if it was an oblique strain or an oblique tear or whatever, right, the abdominal issue in the core was, it seems like a lot of that would have been able to be identified earlier in the process, with an MRI, an X-ray, whatever, right? So it is odd that this thing, if it started in fall camp and then he got healthy and then had a re-aggravation later, and it took until the end of December to figure out what it was, I kind of leave this still perplexed. I don't know that we actually found out from that what, at its core, forgive the pun, was wrong with Garrett Nussmeier. And I hope that this process we do. All that said, I'm not sure that at this point it really tremendously matters, because the season was what it is. And as a result of that season, LSU's moved on to something that we all think and hope could be a much, much better thing under Lane Kiffin. But I do think that Garrett is going to have to go into these one-on-ones, into pro day, into this week at the Senior Bowl, and answer that question about what actually was wrong, and hopefully throws the ball and is physically really well, more resembling who he was throughout his career before this year, which will potentially lead him to being one of the biggest risers in this draft. So it's a massive week for Garrett, certainly provided he gets a combine invite. It'll be a massive week in Indianapolis for him as well. We'll continue to follow it, and whenever we get more clarity, we will continue to pass it along to you. All right, it's After Further Review. Show Up in Every Day is brought to you by Bud Light. Drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light. Official beer of AFR. Official beer, your Fighting Tigers of LSU. Carnival's here, y'all. If you're going to be on that parade route, wherever that parade may be, make sure your ice chest is filled with plenty of delicious ice-cold Bud Light. Of course, official beer of Super Bowl 60 as well. So if you're going to have that Super Bowl party a week from Sunday, make sure you got plenty of delicious ice-cold Bud Light. They've Anheuser-Busch already has released their Budweiser ad for the Super Bowl. You could see it on social media. A little bit of a tearjerker with a little baby Clydesdale. If you want to check it out, you can. It's on the Mockler page as well on Facebook or Instagram if you want to check it out there. Whatever you do, drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR. Okay. Shea Dixon's going to join us next. Rivals has put out their final rankings for the 2026 class, and LSU does have a new 5-star. We'll talk about it next with Shea Dixon on AFR.
AFR.
We're brought to you by Clegg's Nursery with 4 locations in the greater Baton Rouge area. You know where to find them. Siegen near Airline, LA 16 in Denham, Mid-City on Donmore, and the Garden Center on Greenwell Springs. Tell you every day to buy local and shop local. Get on by and see our friends over at Clegg's Nursery. Y'all, the cold weather, well, the cold weather is still here, but the freezing temperatures that have really disabled parts of our region, those seem to have passed. That's great news. So now it's time to get into just plant something mode, and Clegg's Nursery can certainly help you with that. Get by any of the 4 Clegg's Nursery locations. I want to remind you that this is the time right now. This is the time. If you're going to plant a tree, if you're going to plant shrubs, like this is the time to get those fruit trees in the ground. They got a great selection, so get on by Clegg's Nursery. Buy local, shop local. Tell them Matt sent you in to Clegg's Nursery.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
After Further Review, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana.
And remember, over at Sunshine, they're not just lawnmowers and ag equipment. Yes, they are that, but they also sell small construction equipment. So get on by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana, sunequip.com, sunequip.com. All right, it's After Further Review. We're glad to have you hanging out with us here every Tuesday. We talk a little recruiting with Shea Dixon from On 3, the Bengal Tiger. Of course, Rivals under that umbrella now. Shady's good enough to join us now. Shay, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing great. So Wednesday, a week from Wednesday, is the traditional, signing day, which won't really be a big day. But Rivals here today has released their final rankings. And I guess most notable for our audience is that there's a new 5-star, Corey Barber, who flipped from Ole Miss, the receiver, got his 5th star. Tell us about him, Shay, and what went into this decision to give Corey Barber that 5th star.
Yeah, he had a really big season, senior season over in Alabama, so much so at Clay Chalkville. They made the state title. I believe, let me look, 68 catches, 1,000 130 yards and 14 touchdowns. They play in a high level of classification in Bama, and as a senior, he took them to the state title. So that's elite level production. That's coming out of SEC programs. Like, that's about what your top level guy produces. And he was committed to Kiffin and Ole Miss for a while, and they kind of had viewed him as like, okay, this is that guy. Look, a year ago, they leaned on Winnie Watkins so often as a true freshman, and they had a wealth of receivers with experience. And Barber just said, hey, look, we've clicked from the start. I get along with everyone from Kiffin to kind of the vision of Charlie Weiss and Dane Stevens and George McDonald and all these guys that were at Ole Miss and now at LSU. And gosh, Matt, I looked it up earlier. Kiffin, I guess the news broke like that morning. By 3:00, Corey Barber had decommitted from Ole Miss and then signed with LSU 72 hours later. And we haven't had a rankings update since then. So they look at the senior year. He tore apart the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game. And when they just went back and stacked it all up, they said, look, this was a kid who was knocking on the door of the top 150, and knocking on the door, Matt, of a top 20 receiver in the country. When the dust settles, they named him the number 3 receiver in the country. So remember, you had a 5-star committed in Tristan Keys at receiver. Corey Barber finished ahead of Tristan Keys in the Rivals rankings. So not only do you get your 5-star, but you actually ended up with a guy who was higher ranked.
That's really it's pretty fascinating to see how that unfolded. I guess the other really significant news there, Shea, in the Rivals rankings, 3 5-stars for LSU. The other 2, of course, are Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson. Any thoughts, takeaways there on those 2 guys and where they finished in the rankings?
Yeah, I mean, Lamar Brown has battled since he was a sophomore, kind of jockeying for, is he just the number one overall player in the country, regardless of position. And we've had him wire-to-wire number 1 athlete because most college coaches feel he could play offensive line or defensive line and be an all-conference, all-American type. But he's going to play defensive line at LSU. A little bit, I think he wants to play some D-end. I know he talks to Peoples a lot about that position, but he's versatile. Anyone who's seen Lamar Brown, I guess he's best summed up as not many kids who are, what is he at, 6'5", 285, and he's your number 1 athlete. That's usually someone who is a corner or a receiver, and you just don't know which one yet. So Lamar, freaky athlete, and no shock that he just stayed put in the top 10 as a 5-star. And Richard Anderson, the same. Look, I've had college coaches, high school coaches, LSU and beyond say Richard Anderson is one of the best defensive tackles that has come out of Louisiana in a long time. And you can go back to Glenn Dorsey if you felt like it. I mean, anyone who paid attention to Ed Carr and watched their football games, how much he just steamrolled everyone from about the end of his junior year through the playoffs. And then I don't think Bryce Brown and that Carr team have lost a game in like 26 outings. So he was a really big piece to it. And I think we have him as a number 3 D lineman, Matt, number 2, something like that, which is your interior guys, not your edge rushers, but a top 20 prospect. And I'll say this, and I don't think I'm being bold, but we're caught up in portal fever. We know they've got Don McKinley coming back. We know they've got Gabriel Elliford coming back. Don't sleep on these 2 guys. These are 2 of the better defensive linemen LSU signed in a while.
Shea Dixon on through the Bengal Tigers with us at Shea Dixon. Shea, if there is one thing I could look at, you look at the team with the most Rivals 300 signings, and LSU isn't really near the top of that list, in large part, I would say, because, well, they only have 15 right now, but they'll end up with 16 signees in this class. What should we make of this class? Not heavy on numbers, but heavy on talent where they did sign?
Yeah. I mean, look, they have been right there with Oregon, a program that signed 21, which is kind of pretty standard. They had Oregon is number 1 in the country. So if you averaged all 21 of their commits, they have a 92.46. So that's like you're nearing a high 4-star right there. LSU's number 2 with 91.4. And you went through a coaching change. Even when Brian Kelly was here, they only had about 14 commits. They lost a few. They replaced them with some flips from Ole Miss. And then remember, they've now they're going to add 2 more guys. One's already signed, but who didn't sign in December. So one will get finalized here in February, I guess, and the other has already been announced by LSU. So that puts them at 17. It's still a low number, but Matt, I think it's kind of how it played out. There were a number of decommitments. We talked about Tristan Keys and others, and it's pretty tough to convince down the stretch guys to commit to you when you went 5 weeks without a head coach and you didn't know if any of the coaches were staying. They were fortunate that hire happened even 3 to 4 days before signing day, because they were able to hold on to the 5 stars we just talked about and add another 5-star in Corey Barber, who they flipped from Ole Miss. So up against the clock there, they did a pretty impressive job. And I look at 40-something portal guys every year is not going to happen. 2, at Ole Miss, when he was the portal king, they were signing 20-something high school guys a year. So when you've got the built-in Louisiana talent, you've got Kiffin's prowess for just wanting to recruit, and that the staff's kind of gung-ho mentality there, I think that carries well beyond the portal, and they'll be star chasing the best of the best. And he said it in his opening presser, whether it's high school or even in the portal. Look, Louisiana's Louisiana, but we will go anywhere to find the best players to build the best roster.
Jay, when you look at those rankings overall, outside of the 3 5-stars, anything else catch your eye today?
The really one of the biggest talking points was Barber, because look, this is a kid who he's the number 2 player in Alabama. He's not going to Bama, not going to Auburn. He was going to Ole Miss for Lane Kiffin and that staff, and them able to get him into this class. And then now these final rankings come out, and it's like, whoa, this got a freshman 5-star receiver added to the bunch here after you just signed double-digit transfers and you got some guys coming back. I thought that was notable. Really, it was a lot of holding serve, I feel like, for LSU in a way, and not a lot of up and down. I mean, we know the guys who stuck with him the whole time. Deuce Gerald's has been that top 100 guy as a D lineman. He's in a great D line class. Same with Trenton Henderson on the edge. And I love Bryson Martinez, a kid out of East Ascension who played a lot of tight end, offensive tackle, but he's nearing 6'6", 290, and we know they need tackles, so that's a big one. And I'd be remiss if I just didn't say it, and I wish I could back it up here. Maybe you can give me the answer, and I may be missing one recently, but Corey Raymond really honed in when it wasn't Louisiana. He got his Louisiana corner in Des Ellis, but on Haven Finney out at Sierra Canyon in L.A., and he committed early, and everyone tried to flip him, and he signed. And I cannot remember the last time LSU held on to a California kid who was widely considered to be one of the better players at his position in the country.
Well, if you can't remember, I got no shot at doing that, man. I mean, and Finney was the number 1 cornerback for 2027, right? Who reclassed into 2026?
Correct. So he's young for his age and still very highly ranked. So yes, I think that's one of the benefits there, is that he's going to be a guy who's going to be able to be in college but younger, so that development that you want is still ahead of him, as opposed to him maybe being old for his grade or something like that. And look, let's give another hat tip. One last one. Braden Allen, who was a late ad. There was so much craziness those few days before signing day, right after Kiffin got hired. But he's out of LCA, which is a great program over in Lafayette. But he was committed to Oklahoma, and he flipped LSU and got on board with Frank had the offer. Then he committed and went up there and met with Kiffin on day one. And he was a 3-star at the time. And now in the final rankings, we've got him as inside the Rivals 300. So one of the top 300 players out there, regardless of position, and firmly inside the top 10 players in the state. So they did a pretty good job of kind of beyond Blaine Bradford, really keeping the top ranked guys at home.
Jay, is there any other prospect? I know they added a couple late ads that we might see pop or worth keeping an eye on there for a week from Wednesday on the February signing period?
I'm going to maybe speak this into existence, because you've asked me this twice before and I said no both times. Okay. And within days, they offered somebody and then ultimately committed them. But I have not heard any buzz. Okay. And it's coming up quick here. That's next Wednesday. But Amari Peterson, the corner out of Orlando, has already been announced by LSU, so he's an early enrollee. Just didn't sign in that early period. So the guy to watch next Wednesday is Jackson Williams, who we talked about last week, coming out of Shaw as a safety, and a Tulane commit who just kind of got caught up in that coaching change. And instead of going over to Florida, he got the LSU offer and said, I'm in. So he'll sign next week. And I think that will be the only high school guy they add here.
He is Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Make sure you get him at Shea Dixon. Good enough to join us Tuesdays here throughout the year. Talk a little Cruden. Man, we appreciate it. Thanks, Shea.
Thanks so much, Matt.
All right, be well. We're brought to you by First South Farm Credit. You can always start by visiting them online at firstsouthland.com, firstsouthland.com. Your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. If you're thinking of buying land, start there. You want to explore that rural lifestyle. They got loans for land. If you're a new farmer, agriculture, they can even help you finance your ag equipment if you need that. Listen, if you're a farmer, you know, though, that First South Farm Credit has been first in financing agricultural land in Louisiana for more than 100 years. But they do so much more than just that. You want that recreational property? You've been thinking about buying your own hunting property? First South Farm Credit can help you do it. Maybe it's an investment property. Maybe you're coming off the end of the year. You're looking at your tax situation. You talk to your CPA. Buying recreational timber property could be a great tax investment for you as well. Or maybe what you're looking for is, 100 acres to build your family's dream home and have some land. They could do that for you as well. It's First South Farm Credit. FirstSouthland.com. FirstSouthland.com. Thinking of buying land. Your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. FirstSouthland.com. All right, y'all, it's After Further Review. Glad you're hanging out with us here on this Tuesday edition of AFR. We are powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. We'll go around the SEC when we come back. And also, before this hour is over, I do want to give a little hat tip to Joe Brady. If you haven't heard, the former LSU passing game coordinator, the Broyles Award winner from 2019. He is now an NFL head coach. He's been promoted in Buffalo. So we'll give you some context on that and some reaction coming up here in about 15 minutes from right now. Let me know. I got a quick break. Stick around. It's AFR.
After Further Review.
People use the line all the time, new year, new you. And it's convenient. It makes sense. But we're here now at the end of January, and a lot of people, maybe you had that New Year's resolution to lose weight, get in shape, look your best, feel your best. And maybe you've already abandoned that New Year's resolution. Well, it's time to get it back on track. Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness can help. And this is not just ED treatments. Yes, they have all different types of ED treatments and more beyond just the little blue pill. But there's so much more than just that. Yourgoodwood.com, yourgoodwood.com. If you want to learn more about everything that they offer at Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness, yourgoodwood.com is the website if you want to learn more about hormone replacement therapy, about the dozens of different peptides that they offer that can help with things like muscle recovery, mental fog, brain fog, building muscle, burning fat. It's yourgoodwood.com.
After Further Review, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana.
Out in these fields in the hot summer sun, over by the gate, Lordy, here she comes with a basket full of chicken.
It's, I think, the expected news ultimately. I don't think either one of these sides necessarily thought it was the best idea to drag this into court. Duke felt like it was entitled to money with Darian Mensah trying to leave. The way they structured the contract, they essentially owned his NIL rights moving forward. Mensah's camp would point out that you can't restrict an athlete's ability to enroll in one school and move from one school to another, especially when they're not employees. And this had the potential to be a precedent-setting case in court. But ultimately, Duke is probably going to get some amount of money. I've been told this is one of the more significant settlements of a college athletics contract in history. And Mensah is ultimately going to end up at Miami.
That's Chris Hummer from CBS Sports. You didn't hear the news today. Darian Mensah, the Mensah-Duke-Miami love triangle saga is over. That they have agreed to a settlement of that dispute, so it'll not go to court. Miami will pay Duke an undisclosed sum, and Darian Mensah will be allowed to transfer. He will enroll at Miami and be the quarterback who replaces Carson Beck for the national runner-up in 2026. It was interesting. I knew Darian Mensah had a good season. I mean, Duke won the ACC championship. Mensa threw for 3,973 yards. He was just shy of 4,000 yards and 34 passing touchdowns. This was Duke's first outright ACC title since 1962. Of course, we know Mensa started his career at Tulane, left Tulane at the end of last season for Duke, and had this great season at Duke. Now he's parlayed that into an even bigger payday going down to Miami. I would say I really have like three takeaways from this. Number one, it's great for Miami. I mean, they're going to pay for it, but they're going to get a stud quarterback who's 6'3", 4,000 yards in the ACC and 34 touchdowns. I mean, plug, play, rinse, repeat. It's what they keep doing. Cam Ward, Carson Beck, now Darian Mensa. And if you can afford it, do it. And if you're Duke, like, I don't have a ton of sympathy for you because you just did the same thing last year to Tulane to get Mensa. I mean, you were kind of the bully that came in and swiped Tulane's quarterback. Well, now Miami just big boyed you and took your quarterback. So who happens to be the same guy. So it's almost like if you date a girl and she cheated on her boyfriend with you, don't be shocked when she cheats on you with somebody else. It's just the nature of it. I mean, it's what it is. Darian Mensa is going to the highest bidder. I'm not mad at him for that. Go get your money, kid. But I think the biggest takeaway from this will have to be you need better contracts. I mean, it's the reason DeMond Williams is still the quarterback at Washington and not the quarterback at LSU today. Because Washington and the Big Ten had better protections in their deal that dissuaded teams from trying to pay to get DeMond Williams out of that deal. That's the bottom line. So Duke, Clemson, you don't want Ole Miss coming taking your linebacker? Sign a better contract. Chris Hummer also talked about the precedent that this Darian Mensa deal will set.
It's an interesting precedent setter. I was texting with a bunch of general managers this morning across the sport who write these contracts, work with general counsels step by step to write these contracts. And all of them said basically, like, this makes me want to hold firm on buyouts moving forward or on contract language moving forward. Because we saw, based on this settlement, that Duke got something out of this deal and out of this arrangement for letting Darian Mensa essentially leave and break his contract. And I think if I'm an athlete, I see Darian Mensa break this contract and I think, why can't I do the same? To be honest, like, there are no restrictions on Darian Mensa from moving despite what was a record-setting contract before. So in some ways, I think both school and athlete are going to be more emboldened moving forward to try to test the boundaries of these deals.
It's true, as long as you have a school that's willing to pay a large sum of money for the buyout. I mean, if you're not a good enough athlete to warrant the buyout from another school, careful what you sign. All right, it's After Further Review. We're glad to have you hanging out with us here. We are brought to you by the Williamson Eye Center. Want to see 2020? Call 924-2020. Super easy. You go to the website 924-2020 or WilliamsonEye.com, WilliamsonEye.com, WilliamsonEye.com. You'll see right there in the center of the homepage, like the thing right there in the middle of the homepage, is a button that says schedule an eye exam. So, like, you literally just tap that button and then you can schedule your eye exam. And that eye exam or that consultation, it can be done virtually. If you're thinking about LASIK or you want to find out what your options are for your specific issue, maybe you're nearsighted, you're farsighted, you have an astigmatism, they have an option for you. There is a refractive procedure for you, no matter your age or your refractive issue. Just learn more today at the Williamson Eye Center. 924-2020, 924-2020, or WilliamsonEye.com. That's WilliamsonEye.com. Okay, do it every day about this time. Let's go around the SEC.
Around the SEC, bringing you the biggest news from the nation's best conference, the Texas Longhorns.
Western Kentucky All-American offensive lineman Lawrence Seymour has signed with Texas. He was a second-team All-American in 2025 from FWAA, also All-Conference USA. So leaving the Hilltoppers, headed to the 40 Acres. Also played for Akron and Miami. By the way, it's not 100% clear if Seymour has eligibility for the 2026 season. He's going through the waiver process. His agent's optimistic it'll be approved. One worth watching, but it would be a big get for Texas if they get him.
The Florida Gators.
Florida's landed transfer commitment from Indiana wide receiver Ace Signoli. He was a walk-on for the Hoosiers during their national championship run this year. 5'11", 169-pounder, so he's a rising redshirt freshman, did not play for the Hoosiers in a game in 2025. Had interest from North Carolina, Virginia, UConn, Wake Forest, and Brown. He's Florida's 30th transfer commitment of this offseason.
The Tennessee Volunteers.
Jadeus Richard, who spent 3 years with Miami, has committed to Tennessee. He's a cornerback, by the way. 6'1", 195, former four-star from West Monroe. Went to Miami, now is headed to Tennessee to play for the Vols.
The Missouri Tigers.
Mizzou's had a commitment from in-state running back out of Lee Summit, Missouri, by the way. A lot of really good LSU athletes coming out of Lee Summit. His name's Preston Hatfield, sorry. He's ranked the 24th best player in the state of Missouri, the second running back addition to Mizzou's 2026 class, joining three-star Maxwell Warner.
The Alabama Crimson Tide.
And Bama is expected to hire veteran NFL and college assistant offensive line coach Adrian Clem. So, let's see, 24/7 Sports, Matt Zenitz and Alex Scarborough had it first. So, senior defensive assistant this year for Southern Cal, but previously had been the offensive line coach for the New England Patriots, Oregon Ducks, the Pittsburgh Steelers, UCLA, SMU, so tons of offensive line experience. Clem is headed to Tuscaloosa. All right, there you have it. That is around the SEC Tuesday shows, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. SunEquip.com, SunEquip.com. Yeah, they got ag equipment. They also got gators, zero-turn mowers, and small machinery as well, if you want to check it out there at small construction equipment at SunEquip.com. And fired up, man. I pass it every day on I-10, the new Piku exit. You can see from I-10, they're building the newest Sunshine location right there. If you're passing down I-10, no matter which direction you're going, but it's on the, I guess that would be, if you're heading west, it would be on the north side of the interstate. You can't miss it. It's a brand new building they're building right there. They put up the Sunshine logo on the building now, so now you really can't miss it. SunEquip.com, SunEquip.com. Looking forward to that grand opening coming up here in about another month or so. So we'll tell you about it when it happens. All right, it's after further review. Glad to have you hanging out with us here. Joe Brady has been hired as the new head coach of the Bills. Got some thoughts on that coming up here in just a quick second. Hey, we are a little more than a week away from the NBA trade deadline, and we have talked virtually zero Pels this year with good reason. They are awful. And so there's really nothing to talk about as far as the on-floor product right now. When this season's over, they'll go through a coaching search and all that stuff. However, what is interesting is off the floor, there's some conversations with the trade deadline coming about, could New Orleans make a run at Ja Morant? What do you do with Zion, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy? Like, are any of these players potential, Jose Alvarado, potential trade assets here at the deadline? It could be for your new Vice President of Basketball Operations, Joe Dumars, could be a pretty significant trade deadline. And so we'll talk to Jake Madison about that in 30 minutes from right now. I'm not here to break down Pels games. I mean, they stink. It's what they are. It's just that there's no sense in doing it. They're terrible. So, but as far as shaping the roster and reshaping the roster, we'll have those conversations when warranted. So we'll do that with Jake in about 30 minutes from right now. And LSU, Oregon transfer tight end H-back Zach Grace is here. Straight up hour 3. So an hour and 15 minutes from right now. We'll look forward to that conversation. All right, stay with us. It's AFR.
After further review.
Get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. Do what injured people in our state have done for 3 decades. Get Gordon and get it done. Hey, look, Gordon and his team practice all over the state of Louisiana. So it really doesn't matter where you are in Louisiana. If you call 888-8888, 888-8888, you will get a Gordon McKernan Injury Attorney office near you. Alexandria, Baton Rouge, Denham, Gonzales, Hammond, Houma, Lafayette, Lake Charles, Monroe, New Orleans, Shreveport, Zachary, offices all over. So no matter where you are in the state, they can help. And it doesn't matter if it's a car accident, big truck, personal injury. Our friends over at Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys, they can help get what you deserve. It's easy. You can schedule that consultation online for free. Go to getgordon.com, getgordon.com. You can fill out the form right there to get your free consultation. You can always call 888-8888, 888-8888. Get Gordon and get it done.
after further review. Powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana.
She thinks my tractor's sexy.
Got an interesting question on the text line from Adrian, who said, Matt, do you think the Steelers will draft Garrett Nussmeier since Mike McCarthy's the head coach there and used to coach with his dad in Dallas? It's an interesting proposition. I think so much of Nussmeier's draft stock is going to depend just specifically on what teams learn about this injury. Now, and so all that to say, let me elaborate. All that to say, if teams learn that Garrett Nussmeier is 100% and they're very comfortable with where he is today relative to the film he put out in 2024, you may see a situation where a team with a early day 2 pick takes a swing at Garrett Nussmeier. Obviously, the deeper into the draft you get, the less risk there is. It's kind of like the conversation that we had about the Saints drafting quarterbacks, where they drafted Jake Haener with a 4, they took Spencer Rattler with a 5. And my point was, listen, if you're not going to use a first-round pick on a quarterback, then just keep taking one every year. I mean, it's like the nickel slots. Just keep feeding the nickel slot machine until you hit a jackpot. And if you whiff on a 4th or a 5th round pick, I mean, you'd love to find a guy that's in those middle rounds that becomes a starter for you at a different position. But if you hit on a Dak Prescott in round 4 or Kirk Cousins in round 5, it reshapes your organization and the trajectory. Now, ultimately, we know what happened with the Saints. I mean, they took Tyler Shuck in early round 2, and that appears to have hit here. But, specifically with Pittsburgh, there's a giant question as to whether or not Aaron Rodgers comes back. They did draft Will Howard a year ago, the former Kansas State quarterback who, as a transfer, led Ohio State to a national championship. So Will Howard is there, but I guess I would say to you this way: if you're Pittsburgh and Garrett Nussmeier is sitting there at the start of day 3, and you're in around 4, like, do you take a flyer? Yes, I mean, I would imagine any team would be happy to take a flyer on Garrett Nussmeier, a guy with first round talent and potential, who, because of an injury and a not great senior season, falls. But that's why I think Garrett is one of the most interesting prospects in this entire draft, because if he can go through this pre-draft process, prove that he's healthy, and why the production and productivity wasn't there this year, I think you get a lot of teams believing in him. Because, look, he's going to go ace the interviews. I mean, he's genuine, he's engaging, he's a great communicator, he's smart, he's the son of a coach. You can put him on a dry erase board, let him, X and O with anybody. I mean, he's great at all that. So he can go prove the physical ability is still there. I think you'll see him rocket up draft boards, and that's going to change the shape of who might be in the market for Garrett Nussmeier. And look, even on off the bench, talked about his dad being an asset for him throughout this process.
One, he's been around the game for so long that, he's got different bits and pieces. And, he's always talking me through situational stuff. But, I mean, I like, when he's off. And, unfortunately, the Saints weren't in the playoffs this year. But when that does happen, we get more time together, Right. So it's like a good and a bad. Obviously, I want him to be competing still. But being able to sit down with him and watch some of those games in the last month, you know what I mean? And talking through things, watching things. I mean, like, you see that, you know what I mean? Don't do that. Or that type of stuff is time that, I really enjoy with him.
It's only a greater asset for Garrett as he goes throughout this pre-draft process. So we'll follow it this week there in Mobile. Remember, Hester and Flynn are there all week at Senior Bowl, so they'll be broadcasting from Radio Row in Mobile here throughout this week. Hey, we're brought to you by Parish Construction and Roofing, parishbuilt.com, parishbuilt.com. Thrilled that a couple of weeks ago we were named the winner of the best roofing company in Ascension Parish in the official Community Choice Awards. That is completely a fan vote. So we appreciate a community vote. So we thank you so much for that honor of the growth in Ascension, and really all over the state of Louisiana has been remarkable. And we're so pleased to be able to serve our communities. Parishbuilt.com, parishbuilt.com. We do have some info up at the website right now about how winter weather, freezing, ice, all that stuff could potentially be a hazard to your roof. So if you want info, it's there at the website. Or if you just want us to have our crews come give you a check, we could do that. Inspections are always free. Just go to parishbuilt.com, parishbuilt.com. When you go to the website, you'll see the form right there on the homepage. Fill out the form, and boom, we'll be in touch immediately. And if you want, as an owner, a partner in Parish Construction and Roofing, I can help facilitate for you. So if you want to shoot me a text, a DM, something like that, an email, I'm more than happy to help facilitate as well. But you can always go to parishbuilt.com, parishbuilt.com, and just fill out the form on the homepage for Parish Construction and Roofing. Do business with someone you know, Parish Construction and Roofing. You probably saw the news today. The Buffalo Bills have promoted Joe Brady to their head coach, 5-year deal. He replaces Sean McDermott. He was promoted there as the offensive coordinator week 11 of 2023. Since then, the Bills have been first in EPA per play, second in points per game. They had 9 games this season where they scored 30-plus, that tied with the Rams for the most in the NFL. Of course, a year ago, Josh Allen won the MVP. This year, James Cook won the rushing title. Josh Allen is going to turn 30 in May and apparently sat in on these interviews for the new coach. He had a big say in this, and apparently Allen and Brady's relationship was a big part of this. So another win for 2019 LSU. Joe Brady, of course, the passing game coordinator and wide receivers coach on that team in 2019, now an NFL head coach at just 36 years old. So congratulations to Joe Brady. Head coach, and that 2019 roster has accumulated more than $1.1 billion in NFL contracts. Sports Center is coming up. Hour 2 next.
AFR.
Man, I love telling you about relief windows, especially on a week like this where we've had these temperatures getting down into the low 20s. It's a great reminder about making your home energy efficient. Now, the opposite happens during the summer when it's super hot outside and you want to make sure that your home stays cool and climate controlled. But think about it this time of year. I mean, you've all been there. Like, you walk into a room that's drafty. You know what I mean? Like when you wake up in the morning and you're bare feet and you're walking through your house and you walk into a room in your house and it's drafty. Well, chances are a key reason why it is drafty and cold in that room is because you do not have energy efficient windows. You have windows that have costly air leaks. It's allowing that cold air in and making your heater, your furnace, work harder to warm your home. So you want to make your home more energy efficient. You want to beautify your home, increase your home's resale value. You want Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. They do shutters too. It's Relief Windows and reliefwindows.com.